This is going to be a fun video to do. So I just got off the phone with one of my best friends. He was the best man at my wedding, and he's been watching the channel. And I asked him, what knife should I bring up to review next? What should be the next knife that I bring on screen? And he said maybe not try and do a knife review, but bring up a best budget knife, best budget folding knife that people can kind of look up if they're new to the knife game, and maybe they can grab that and not spend a ton of money on it, but still enjoy it and still have a quality knife. So it got me thinking, and I will do, I think, one day a best budget folders. But today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to frame this video like you are new to the knife game. Maybe you've never watched a YouTube video about a knife. Maybe you're completely new to owning a knife or to having a knife, but you like the idea of having a knife or some form of cutting tool in your pocket or on your keychain because it's useful, and it is. I will always advocate you carry a knife, a multi-tool, something that can get you out of a sticky situation, or something that can just open a letter or open a box or help someone in need, cut a cheesecake, as some people say. So the way I'm going to frame this is people who are new to the knife world, maybe they got a knife as a birthday present, they got a knife at a gift exchange. It's not the highest of quality knife. They kind of know that, but they like the idea of having a knife. And so they want to get into something, a good first knife that's high quality, but that's not too expensive. So a couple ground rules for the knives we're going to go over today. First of all, I'm not even going to say they have to be specifically like a single bladed folding knife, because I'm going to bring a couple knives to the table that are more than just knives. Two, I'm going to say they have to be under 50 to 60 bucks, nothing over that price range, because if you're getting your first knife, I know me personally, if I'm getting into something, I don't want to spend, a couple $100 or even really $100. I want to kind of get something that's high quality, that doesn't break the bank, that kind of allows me to see if I can, enjoy the hobby and enjoy that kind of stuff. And also, the knives we're going to go over that are even in the 20 to 30 price range are fantastic knives. You could own that knife, and if it broke, just buy another one for the rest of your life, and you'd probably be fully satisfied with that knife. That is, unless you got into collecting or using, and you'd want more. Anyway, so those are kind of the ground rules. It's going to be a lower end, not low quality, but it's going to be in the budget range, and it doesn't necessarily have to be specifically a knife. And going along that line, we're going to start off with a couple of knives, but this might be a good option if you are completely new to knives. You don't want anything heavy. You want something super light, something you can throw on your keychain, but you do want to carry a knife on you. Something like this. This is a little SOG. I don't even know the model of this. I got this, I believe, as a gift. Can't remember why, but it's a little SOG. It's probably like 3CR stainless steel. The steel isn't great, but if you are completely new to knives, this knife is going to be fine. It will open a box and it can attach to your keychain. It's meant to do that right there. It will open a box. It's lightweight. You'll carry it. You'll have it on your keychain. So something like this, or something like this little Schrade right here. And I actually really like this Schrade. This little Schrade right here, you can have either of these knives, I think, for under 10 bucks. And I think this is 8CR13 MOV, which for you new knife people doesn't mean a single thing. It means that the blade steel is pretty good, actually. It's not bad for a cheap knife, and you won't have to be sharpening it as much as those cheap knives you get at gas stations. So something like this, sorry that camera isn't focusing perfectly, but something like this in this ballpark, where you can throw it on your keychain and, it's easy to use, and you new knife people are like, yeah, great, I'll pick up a knife, a small knife like that. A couple brands that are in this range that will probably work well are, Schrade, SOG, Cold Steel, any of the Swiss Army knives, Victorinox, anything like that. If you just want a simple cutting tool, something like that will do you fine, and I advocate for that. Carry something rather than nothing. Next, we're going to move into something a little bit different, and we're going to move into knives that aren't just knives, but they're also multi-tools. So I do like multi-tools. I usually carry one. I have one on my keychain. This right here is the Leatherneck Sidekick. If you can see that, gosh, I'm so sorry about that glare. The Leatherneck Sidekick, you can't even read that. Yeah. Oh, here we go. That did focus right there. Okay, I'll start doing that from now on if it focuses that well. There you go. So the it's the Leatherman Sidekick. This is a great multi-tool, but it's more for people who enjoy carrying multi-tools, they really, really use them. You know, they use the saw, they use the pliers. You know, this has all sorts of stuff, you know, screwdrivers, anything you really could want in a multi-tool. And this is great, especially if, you know, you do construction or anything like that. Great option for carrying that. And of course it has a knife. So that knife is actually pretty great. One thing I love about this Leatherman Sidekick, and a lot of Leathermans are like this, is it actually locks. So that's not coming forward on your hand at all. It's a smooth deployment. So if maybe you work construction and, you know, you're wanting to carry around something, but you don't want to have to carry around pliers and, you know, a screwdriver as well. Something like this Leatherman, and Leatherman makes fantastic products. I don't think there's a Leatherman I don't recommend. But, you know, that's a great option for carrying around a knife and, you know, along with a bunch of other tools. There are a few other multi-tool options. You know, here's a little Gerber dime. You know, this is very, very small. I'll show it to you how big it is in my hand. You know, it's very, very small. This can go on your keychain and you don't hardly even feel it. It weighs about the same as 4 keys or so. And this is the Leatherman Squirt, you know, very small, maybe even smaller. It's not focusing. Maybe even smaller than that Gerber dime. But, you know, and these go for, you know, around 20, 30 bucks. The Leatherman Sidekick's going to be a little bit more. You know, it's going to probably be around 40 bucks. And then this is the one I've been carrying lately, and I've been loving it. It's a little bit bigger, has a little bit more capabilities than those 2 smaller ones. You can see the difference in size right here. Sorry, that's so out of focus, but we'll get there. The difference in size. So it's a decent amount bigger. And this, I believe, is the mini suspension. Yeah, mini suspension. And this has, you know, anything you could want on a multi-tool, really, just kind of shrunken down. It's got a good solid blade. You know, these don't lock up like the bigger ones might. But, you know, if you're cutting boxes, anything like that, that's going to be fine. Now, if you get into anything else, anything heavier duty, you're going to want a blade that locks. You're going to want a stronger blade. So, you know, if you're primarily using a knife for the knife itself, I would say go with a standard knife. Now, I personally usually carry a multi-tool and a knife, sometimes even 2 knives, just depending, more for fun than anything. So if you're wanting to carry a knife primarily for the knife itself, I would say carry a single bladed knife, and then you can always carry something small like this on your keychain. Really not a big deal, very easy to carry. Or you can, honestly, if you carried these 2 things on your keychain, for most tasks, you'd be set. Now, if you want to cut something, if you use it for food preparation or anything like that, I would say you're going to want a bigger knife. So now we're going to move into the knife category, and we'll kind of go up the chain. I've showed this on camera before, and I still highly recommend it. This is the Ontario Rat 1, and you can get this a little smaller in a Rat 2. This is Aussate steel for those of you who are new to knives. It's a good steel. It won't be terribly difficult to sharpen, but it will hold an edge pretty well. It's smooth. It's easy to deploy. It's not terribly heavy. It's not super light, but this is a great single knife option for you guys who are new to knives, who want to get into something that's a high quality knife. And honestly, kind of like I mentioned up top, you could own this knife, and if it broke, you bought another one for the $20 to $30 price range they go for at Walmart or on Amazon, and you'd probably be happy. Now, I think this knife is kind of like the gateway knife to enjoying nicer knives, though, because the deployment's smooth, the steel is good, the grind is nice, you know, the profile of the blade is nice, it's comfortable in hand. So once you get something like this in hand, you're like, oh, this is how a knife can feel, this is how comfortable a knife can be, this is how quality a knife can be, and it kind of makes you want other things. So yeah, those are a few options up to this point. Now let's look at something a little bit different. Let's look at a fixed blade, and I'm not talking about a big fixed blade. I'll go over kind of a budget first fixed blade knife, but if you're wanting something small you can carry with you every day, this is the Cold Steel Mini Tack Bowie. The Cold Steel Mini Tack Bowie is about a $20 knife. It's an 8CR steel, which I had mentioned it before on that charade. It's a decent Chinese steel. It's not great. It's not bad. It's going to be a lot better than those cheap knives that you get in those gift kits, though. But if you want to carry a knife like this This is super lightweight. It's very thin, great for slicing through things. I know a lot of people use these as like skinning knives, and it comes with a SecureX sheath. So this locks in there, and you can hear that lock in right there. And you can get belt clips for this, but I just attach some paracord and I run this horizontally when I carry it, and I just run it right along the front part of my belt, and I don't notice it, not even the tiniest bit. So if you like the idea of carrying a knife, but you kind of don't trust folding knives, or you're going to use it really, really hard and you don't want to get anything in that pivot mechanism like grit or anything like that, a fixed blade knife might be the way to go, especially if you're an outdoorsman or anything like that. So let's go on to something a little bit different. So say you want a knife, you want a folding knife, but you don't like the newer design. You don't like these plastic handles. You don't want anything like that. You want to carry a knife every day, but you want that classic style. Well, a great option is the Buck 110. Buck 110 is a classic. A lot of you guys have probably seen knives like this. This is a very heavy, old school design. It's made of 420 steel, which again, for the price range of about $35, and you can find these, again, you can find these at Walmart. You can find these anywhere for $35, $40. It's decent steel. You do have to add that thumb stud, and I do highly recommend that thumb stud. Otherwise, you're going to have to pull the knife out, and it's a two-hand ordeal, and that's just annoying to me. I like being able to open a knife with one hand. So, you're looking at about $35. This is a classic design. It's solid brass. It's heavy. It's got a stabilized wood handles. So, this will be a great hard use knife, but it's also very, very heavy, and it also doesn't have a pocket clip. It comes with a very, very high quality leather sheath. And if you're okay with carrying it like that, I say go for it. You can carry it in the smaller pocket, in like a jeans pocket, and it seems to fit just fine there as well. But yeah, if you're wanting to carry a knife, but you don't like the modern style, this is a great option. That being said, it's also very heavy, and I don't know many people who carry these, primarily because of that and because of the fact they don't have pocket clips. You can find modernized versions of them with pocket clips, but that kind of defeats the whole style of what we're going for. So that's a great option if you're looking for something more traditional. Let's go through a few more. Say you want a really heavy duty knife that is not going to fail you. I mean, you just know beyond the shadow of a doubt it's not going to fail you, and you use it hard. Maybe you're in construction, maybe you cut carpet, anything like that. The Cold Steel Voyager is a great option as well. Cold Steel Voyager is AUS 8. It's the same steel. Cold Steel does a tempering differently. And for those of you new knife people who don't know what tempering is, it's when the steel is heated really, really high and then quenched. I don't know how I don't know the science behind it, but there's something about tempering that makes steel, like certain steels, better. So certain companies will have AUS 8 steel. Well, then another company will have AUS 8 steel, and the AUS 8 steel from one company is better than the AUS 8 steel from another company. So you really just have to take companies, as they are, and from, other people's experience if you don't have experience yourself. Cold Steel is one of my favorite companies, as you can see. And this is an AUS 8A, and it's, from my experience, it's one of the higher used, better used AUS 8 steels. They make these in AUS 10, which is even better, and these go for around $50. So some of you might not want to spend $50 on a first knife, and I totally get that. I really do. But if you want a really, really hard use knife, the Cold Steel Voyager is a really, really good option, and it's not terribly expensive, and they come in different blade styles with serrations, without serrations, anything like that. So yeah, that's a great option. Say you want something a little smaller, because those are all pretty big size knives. I mean, you're talking about 4-inch for the Cold Steel Voyager. You're talking about 3.5 inches for the Rat 1, and 3.5 inches is kind of generally what's considered a full-sized knife. But say you want something a little less intimidating, a little more refined, that's not as big, and when you pull it out, it's quick, and it doesn't make a big thwack, and it doesn't intimidate people. Well, the Kershaw Leak is a great option in that case. So the Kershaw Leak is in 14C28 in steel, which again, to you new knife people, that doesn't mean anything. It's a good steel. It's a very good steel, actually, for being a budget steel. These can be found for between $35 and $50, depending on what style you get. So the Kershaw Leak comes in a bunch of different styles. In this particular style, this is the frame lock, or the liner lock, which is going to be lighter than the frame lock. The difference is, you see there's a liner right there, and that locks up and engages the blade from pushing forward. Frame lock just means that liner is essentially built out of the whole frame, and the whole frame locks that up. It's a little bit stronger, but those are a lot heavier. This comes in a really, really cool purple with a black wash finish. It's like a Walmart exclusive or something. My wife got it for me about a week ago, and it's been a great knife. It's fast. It's very, very lightweight. You hardly notice it being in your pocket. The handle scales are pretty slick, but there's some jimping up top and some jimping down bottom that really lock you in. This is blade style. It's called a Warncliffe, and it's very utilitarian. I do usually like a blade with more belly. Again, for you new knife people, belly, goodness gracious, that glare is horrible. Belly is that part right there. It's what kind of is best used for slicing, and then you have this straight part of the blade. So on a blade like the Kershaw Leak, you don't have any belly, but for opening packages, for doing a lot of the stuff that you do with a knife, really, realistically, it is great. So you want a less intimidating knife that's lightweight, that's easy to carry. It's a little bit more expensive than the others, but it's definitely worth it for that $50. So that's a great option as well for a first knife. Now, for those of you who like more of the tactical style blades, the military kind of law enforcement style, maybe you are in the military, or maybe you are law enforcement, you want a blade that can function in that way, can be effective in that way, for if you need to rescue someone or cutting whatever you need to cut, or it be used as a defensive knife. A lot of the knives I've shown you can be, I'm sure, used that way. I know the Minitac Bowie, again, it's a Bowie style, which was designed as a fighting knife, a little small for that. The Rat 1, I'm sure, would do just fine in most situations like that, if you need to save anyone or defend your life. The Cold Steel Voyager, I think, kind of is geared more towards that style. But then a knife that really has that look and is definitely geared towards that is the Kershaw Blur. So you can tell by just looking at it, has that kind of tactical looking style. It's black. It's got the Tanto blade. For those of you, again, who are new to knives, Tanto is where you have that secondary edge right there, and then it kind of comes and sweeps up like that. So it's very immediate, whereas a lot of knives you've seen kind of have that gradual swoop up there. So it's a Tanto style blade, which means that the tip is a lot stronger and it's more reinforced and is meant to take more of a beating than others. Also, the cool thing about this knife is it is assisted opening, just like the Leak was too, but this, I think, is one of the best assisted opening knives because it's not overbearing and it's actually still very smooth even without the assist. So this kind of, it looks intimidating, but it's going to function like most of the other knives we've had here. Now, this does have serrations, which might be a good thing for you if you don't get to sharpen your knives that often. If you want to be able to cut material really quickly and not have to worry about if your knife is super sharp or not, having serrations might be a great option for you. This knife is very grippy. It feels good in the hand. It's fast to deploy. It's adequately strong. It's not going to be as strong as, say, the Cold Steel or the Buck, because they're both lockbacks, and you can tell the difference. So a lockback is where the blade locks back here, and it engages with the bar right here, and so that the lockback engages with the blade and it holds that in place. And the Cold Steel actually has an extra stop pin that in the triad lock that keeps it stronger. And you see the same thing with the Buck. It's the same kind of concept. It doesn't have the triad lock back, but it locks back here and you disengage that to open the blade. The Kershaw Blur and a lot of the other knives we've shown today have a liner lock, which honestly, for most situations, is going to be perfectly strong. It's going to be plenty strong. But if you do want a knife that's really strong, you might want to go with something like a lockback. Anyway, this is a great option, great first knife for people who want that more tactical style knife. That being said, they make these in standard drop point styles, and even just this as a knife, it's a great utilitarian knife. It's great for doing anything you need to do with a knife. I generally don't prefer serrations. I got this in a trade, and I have held on to it just because I've loved the Blur, and I think I'm going to pick up another one. But this isn't limited to that tactical style. It's honestly be great for anyone. So we're going to get to the last one. And to be honest, I'm not in love with this knife. I've shown this knife a couple times on camera. This is the Spyderco Resilience, and this is a big knife. I think this, again, lends itself to the tactical style, but this also lends itself really, really well to people who you carry around a knife and you want to be able to cut food. Yeah, we have kitchen knives, but most of the time they're super dull. So this knife would be great for that. One of the reasons for that is this is a grind called full flat grind, which essentially means it's just, you can see the metal just is ground all the way to the top. There's no secondary grind angle on it. And it's a big blade. It's about 4.5 inches. So, you want to cut through a big slice of cake. You want to cut through a big slice of meat. Something like this would be great. These run for about $60. It's 8CR steel. I think that they're a little bit overpriced for the steel. And since they're manufactured overseas, I just think they're a little overpriced when I can get something like the Kershaw Blur, which is made in the States, 14C28N. I think it's better steel for around the same price. Personally, I think they're a little overpriced. But if you like the style of blade, that kind of leaf style of blade, it deploys smoothly. Oop, just dropped that. Even people who love knives make mistakes. Yeah, so, this deploys really, really smoothly. And it's a great knife for people who like this style. I am going to define a winner, in my opinion, for your first knife. And what I'm taking into account when I'm talking about this is, overall style, overall price, overall what would be best for that person who they want to carry a knife, but they don't want to spend a ton, and they want a knife that's going to be really helpful and effective for them. I'm going to give it to the Ontario Rat. It's a knife you can get anywhere. It's a knife with good steel that's easy to sharpen, that's not super expensive. You're looking at half the price of some of the other knives I've shown. So ultimately, if you're looking for your first knife and you don't want to spend any more than $30, I say get a knife like this. If you want to spend a little bit more, maybe move on to the Cold Steel Voyager or the Kershaw Leak or the Blur, just depending on if you want a bigger or a smaller knife. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you would recommend people get as their first knife. I know it really depends on what you do and what, you kind of do as a person, if you're going to use it for work or for recreation or anything like that, or self-defense. So let me know what you would recommend as a first knife, and we will see you in the next video. Like and subscribe, and have a good one, guys. Bye.